My dear friends, today we have a very special program. It is special because our guest is very special. I'm speaking about Dr. Edna Aizenberg. She is a historian, an investigator. She's a PhD. She was a visiting professor at the Hebrew University in different schools in the United States, where she lived for a number of years. And I know her already, well, for over half a century. One should not talk about the age of a lady, but that's the truth. We both came to Caracas, Venezuela at about the same time in 1967. She came as the wife of Rabbi Isidoro Aizenberg, who was the rabbi of the B'nai B'rith for 7 years and is remembered to this very day for the extraordinary work he did then. However, Edna Aizenberg was not only the wife of the rabbi, she is a very important personality on her own. She has written many books. She has done a lot of investigation, and especially the latest one she just published now, On the Edge of the Holocaust, is a very important work. So Dr. Aizenberg, thank you very much for coming here to share with us a little bit of your experiences. By the way, you speak about Latin America in that book, I understand, and we all have the notion that Latin America was very hospitable to Nazis. They sympathize with them, and you want to say no. You want to say something different. What are you saying?
Well, I don't want to say no exactly, but I want to say that's not the whole picture. It's part of the picture. And my book emphasizes the other side, that the side that's not told. And that side is the tremendous amount of anti-Nazi activism and writing, particularly on the part of important intellectuals in a number of countries, including Chile, Argentina, Brazil, and other places, who wrote in their literature, but sometimes even placed their lives on the line in order to save Jews.
You said that some of them were diplomats also, right?
Yes. In Latin America, there was, particularly at that time, a custom of making intellectuals to send them abroad as diplomats. And that was the case of several of the authors that I deal with in the book. One of them was a Nobel Prize winner. She won the first Nobel Prize after the Second World War. Her name was Gabriela Mistral, a Chilean, and she got the prize for literature. And she, for example, was the consul in Nice, France, and helped Jews leave, get out of France, and find refuge in Latin America.
So they not only wrote, they did something concrete.
That's right. And she describes in a letter, a very moving letter, to a friend of hers, another very important intellectual, Victoria Ocampo, a very highfalutin Argentinian intellectual, who was very pro-French. And Gabriela tells her, look, you think France should be admired, but she says, but you can only admire a country on the basis of the books that are written. You have to admire a country on the basis of how it treats human beings. And I can tell you from the time that I was in Nice that the French police was just a little bit less horrible than Hitler's police.
Terrible. You know, we all know about the collaboration. The fact Adolf Eichmann was found in Argentina. What Latin America did, but what you are proposing is that that is not the whole truth.
Exactly.
There is another. Why do you think your book is so important to tell this story in Latin America in particular?
Well, I think it's important because Latin America, unfortunately, didn't always take to heart the lesson and the lessons that these intellectuals try to teach, and particularly in the southern part of Latin America, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, in the 70s, 1970s, you had a kind of neo-fascist
70s of last century.
of last century, sorry, the new century, yes. A kind of neo-fascist revival with dictatorships, very strong right-wing dictatorships, that took as their models Hitler and the Nazis. And so to write a book emphasizing that this is not the only heritage of Latin America.
You mean dictatorships?
That's right.
And that are intellectuals that understood what happened.
Right, and it's interesting that the more recent writers from the 1970s often take as their example the intellectuals from the 1930s and 40s.
They skip back.
That's right. Mm-hmm. We always look in the past for models for the present and the future. So they look back to Gabriela Mistral. Look what she did. Look how she spoke up.
Where are we today in Latin America as far as the Holocaust is concerned?
Well, I think there's a tremendous growth in the awareness of the Holocaust. A number of the countries now have museums, like Buenos Aires. They participate in the World Holocaust commemoration.
January, the United Nations.
That's right, from the United Nations. They teach about it in the schools. And as I say, I think a lot of it has to do with this terrible experience that they had, calling some of the camps, the torture centers that existed in Chile. I went to visit some of these places, and it's really chilling. They compared these places in their own countries to Auschwitz. Of course, the comparison is not exactly proper, if you want to be very precise, but the idea that they are taking an example from what happened on a smaller scale in their own countries and what shouldn't happen again, I think there's a great awareness now of the Holocaust.
Dr. Aizenberg, I think your work is very important in not permitting that what happened during the Second World War be forgotten. I think it was Whitehead who said that those people that don't know their history will repeat the mistakes in the future. We cannot delve on what happened exclusively. We must look to the future. On the other hand, if we forget what happened, it may repeat itself, and we want never again. We don't want that. Thank you very much, Dr. Aizenberg, for your work that you do. I'm sure it's for the benefit of all of us.
And your program is part of that educational endeavor.
Now it is.
Thank you.
Now it is.